Imagine standing in the eye of a storm. Winds howl around you, pulling at every part of WHO you are. Relationships fracture, health falters, career paths collapse, and the ground beneath your feet feels like it's shifting without warning. Most people break under this pressure. They shatter into fragments of regret, bitterness, or withdrawal. But a rare few remain steady, not because the storm spares them, but because something inside them has been forged differently. They bend without snapping. They absorb the force and redirect it. They emerge not just intact, but stronger in ways that matter most. This is the art of being unbreakable. Not the Hollywood version of invincibility where nothing ever touches you. That version doesn't exist in any real human life. Instead, it's a quieter, deeper mastery. The capacity to experience life's inevitable pressures without losing your core direction, your clarity, or your ability to choose your next step with intention. It is a skill built through deliberate practice, not a genetic gift or a lucky streak, and it is available to anyone willing to engage with the process honestly. Consider how often we witness the opposite. A promising executive crumbles after a single public failure, retreating into self-doubt that lingers for years. A parent collapses under the weight of loss, becoming emotionally absent for the very children WHO need them most. A driven individual meets repeated setbacks and gradually hardens into cynicism, their relationships turning transactional and cold. These patterns are common because most of us were never taught how the mind and emotions actually respond to sustained challenge. We were told to stay positive or push through, but those shallow instructions rarely address the deeper mechanics of human resilience. True unbreakability begins with a fundamental reframe. Strength is not the absence of pain or vulnerability. It is the trained ability to hold both the pain and your purpose at the same time. The unbreakable person does not deny difficulty. They develop a relationship with it that serves their long-term growth. They learn to observe their own internal reactions without being hijacked by them. This creates space between the trigger and the response, where choice becomes possible. Think about the last time something truly tested you. Perhaps it was a betrayal that blindsided you, or a goal you poured years into that suddenly evaporated. In that moment, your mind likely flooded with automatic thoughts. This always happens to me, or I'm not enough, or people can't be trusted. These thoughts feel true in the heat of the moment, because they ride on powerful emotional waves. Yet they are often interpretations shaped by past experiences rather than accurate readings of present reality. The person mastering unbreakability learns to notice these waves without immediately riding them to destructive conclusions. This mastery rests on several interconnected capacities. First is self-awareness, the quiet, consistent practice of observing your own patterns without harsh judgment. Most people live on autopilot, reacting to life through habits formed in childhood or difficult periods they never fully processed. They don't realize how much of their daily emotional experience is recycled history rather than fresh response. By increasing awareness, you begin to see the difference between what is happening externally and the story you are telling yourself about it. That distinction is liberating. Second is emotional regulation, not suppression, but skilled navigation. Emotions carry essential information. Anger often signals a boundary that has been crossed. Fear points towards something we value that feels threatened. Sadness invites reflection on what has been lost. The unbreakable individual doesn't eliminate these signals. They learn to experience them at a manageable intensity while still maintaining access to clear thinking. This prevents the common cycle where one strong emotion triggers a cascade that leads to regrettable decisions or prolonged inner turmoil. Third is the cultivation of perspective, the ability to zoom out and see today's crisis within the broader landscape of a life. When you're in the middle of pain, the present moment can feel eternal. Time seems to slow, and the mind fixates on the threat. Training perspective interrupts this narrowing. It reminds you that human lives contain seasons, that many WHO have faced similar or worse situations, eventually found paths forward, and that your current struggle, while real, is not the entirety of your story. None of this is abstract philosophy. These are practical, trainable skills that improve with use, much like physical fitness. The difference is that while muscles respond to consistent exercise, the mind responds to consistent attention and deliberate practice. You don't become unbreakable by waiting for life to get easier. You become unbreakable by engaging with life as it is. Messy, unpredictable, sometimes brutally demanding, while steadily strengthening your internal architecture. Let me share a quiet truth many discover only after years of unnecessary suffering. Fragility is often learned. We absorb it from environments that rewarded emotional reactivity, from role models, modeled avoidance, or from repeated experiences where expressing vulnerability led to harm. Unbreakability, then, is not about becoming less human. It is about becoming more skillfully human. It allows you to remain open without being overwhelmed, decisive without being rigid, and compassionate without becoming a doormat. This journey asks something significant of you. It requires honesty about your current patterns. It asks you to face discomfort rather than distract from it. It invites repeated, small choices that compound over time into a fundamentally different way of moving through the world. The rewards are substantial. Deeper relationships built on genuine trust rather than guarded transactions, clearer decision-making even under pressure, a sense of internal steadiness that others begin to notice and rely upon, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you can weather storms without losing yourself. In the sections ahead, we will explore this art systematically. We will examine the psychological foundations that make resilience possible, the daily practices that strengthen it, the common obstacles that weaken it, and the long-term identity shifts that make unbreakability feel natural rather than forced. Each idea will be paired with practical applications you can begin testing immediately, not as quick fixes, but as sustainable shifts. You may notice resistance as we proceed. That's normal. The mind often prefers familiar discomfort over unfamiliar growth. When that happens, simply notice it. That noticing itself is the beginning of change. The art of being unbreakable is not about reaching a perfect state where nothing affects you. It is about developing the capacity to recover, to realign, and to continue moving toward what matters, with increasing effectiveness, even when life pushes back. This capacity tends to increase the likelihood of better outcomes across life domains. Relationships become more stable because you respond rather than react. Career challenges become opportunities for refinement rather than identity threats. Personal setbacks fuel clearer self-understanding rather than endless rumination. Over time, you build a life that is not free of difficulty, because no such life exists, but one where difficulty no longer dictates your inner state or long-term direction. The process ahead is not linear. There will be days when you feel progress and days when old patterns reassert themselves. That too is part of the training. Consistency in the face of imperfection is itself a demonstration of unbreakability. Each return to awareness, each choice to regulate rather than escalate, each moment of perspective regained strengthens the neural and emotional pathways that support this way of being. As you listen, I invite you to reflect on your own life, not with criticism, but with curiosity. Where have you broken in ways that taught you something valuable? Where might you be carrying unnecessary fragility today? What small shift, practiced consistently, could begin altering your trajectory? The answers that emerge will be uniquely yours, because unbreakability is not a one-size-fits-all formula. It is a personal mastery shaped by your history, values, and aspirations. This is not about becoming someone WHO never feels pain. It is about becoming someone WHO is no longer controlled by pain. Not someone WHO trusts blindly, but someone WHO builds trust wisely. Not someone WAO controls outcomes, but someone WAO maintains integrity of response regardless of outcomes. These distinctions matter deeply. They keep the pursuit ethical, grounded, and sustainable. You already possess the raw material. Every human mind has the capacity for adaptation, reflection, and growth. Question is whether you will deliberately cultivate it. The chapters that follow offer a clear path, not easy, but profoundly worthwhile. A path toward a version of yourself that can stand steady amid uncertainty, choose wisely amid pressure, and continue creating meaning even when circumstances resist. This is the beginning of mastering the art of being unbreakable. Let us begin where all meaningful transformation starts, with a clear understanding of what actually happens inside a human being when life applies pressure. Most of us carry an incomplete picture of resilience. We imagine it as a kind of armor that keeps everything out. In reality, the art of being unbreakable is closer to developing a highly responsive nervous system and a flexible mind that can absorb impact, process it, and return to balance without losing its essential shape. consider the human stress response. When something significant disrupts your life, a sudden loss, a major failure, prolonged uncertainty, your body and brain activate ancient survival mechanisms. Heart rate increases, attention narrows, emotions surge. This is not weakness. It is your system doing exactly what it evolved to do: protect you. The challenge arises when these temporary responses become chronic patterns. Repeated activation without adequate recovery can leave a person feeling permanently on edge, quick to react, and slow to trust. The unbreakable path is not about turning off this system. It is about learning to work with it skillfully. At the core of this mastery lies self-awareness. Not the surface-level version that merely notices obvious emotions, but a deeper, almost surgical observation of your internal landscape. You begin to notice the precise moment when a trigger lands. You catch the first flicker of defensiveness, the subtle tightening in your chest, the automatic story that starts forming in your mind. This noticing creates a small but powerful gap. In that gap lies choice. Many people live their entire lives without ever discovering this gap. They believe they are their emotions or their thoughts. When anger arrives, they become anger. When fear appears, they become fear. The person developing unbreakability treats these experiences differently. They observe them as temporary states passing through, carrying useful data but not defining identity. This shift tends to reduce the intensity and duration of emotional storms over time. Practical application starts simply. Choose one recurring situation that typically unsettles you, perhaps certain conversations at work, specific family dynamics, or the way you handle financial pressure. For the next 2 weeks, commit to a single practice. Pause for 3 conscious breaths the moment you notice tension rising. Not to suppress the feeling, but to create space. During those breaths, silently name what you are experiencing. This is frustration. This is fear of rejection. Naming reduces the automatic power of the emotion. It moves the experience from the emotional centers of the brain toward areas responsible for observation and decision-making. You will likely discover that the emotion itself is rarely the true problem. The real difficulty comes from the meaning you assign to it. A missed deadline might trigger the thought, "I'm incompetent." A disagreement might produce, "They don't respect me." These interpretations often contain partial truth mixed with old pain. The unbreakable approach involves gently questioning them without self-attack. What evidence supports this? What evidence might suggest a different view? What would I tell a respected friend in this same situation? This questioning is not positive thinking. It is clear thinking under pressure. It increases the likelihood that your responses will serve your actual goals rather than simply discharging emotional energy. Another foundational element is learning to distinguish between what you can influence and what you cannot. This distinction, when truly internalized, prevents enormous amounts of unnecessary suffering. Energy spent trying to control other people's choices, past events, or random external circumstances tends to create frustration and helplessness. The same energy directed toward your own responses, preparations, and daily standards tends to build quiet confidence. In practice, this might look like shifting from "I need them to understand me" to "I will communicate clearly and respect their right to respond as they choose," or from "this setback should not have happened" to "given that it has happened, how can I respond in a way that protects my values and long-term direction?" These small reframes compound. They transform you from someone at the mercy of circumstances into someone WHO maintains agency within them. Emotional regulation forms the next layer. Regulation does not mean never feeling strong emotions. It means developing the ability to experience them at intensities that allow clear thinking and responsible action. One effective method involves body-based awareness. Strong emotions always manifest physically. Tight shoulders, shallow breathing, clenched jaw, restless legs. By deliberately relaxing these areas while the emotion is present, you send a signal to your nervous system that safety is possible even in discomfort. Try this during a moment of irritation. Notice where the feeling lives in your body. Place your attention there and breathe into that space slowly. Many people report that the intensity naturally decreases within 60 to 90 seconds when approached this way. Not because the situation changed, but because your physiological response shifted. This skill proves especially valuable in relationships. Instead of reacting from heightened emotion and saying things you later regret, You create enough internal space to choose words that serve connection rather than just expression. Consistency matters more than perfection here. Some days the practice will feel natural. Other days old patterns will win. The key is returning to awareness each time you notice you have been swept away. That return itself strengthens the muscle of unbreakability. Over months, you will likely notice that situations that once derailed you for days now pass through in hours. Setbacks that previously triggered weeks of rumination begin to resolve into constructive reflection. Perspective training adds another dimension. When difficulties arise, the mind tends to zoom in, making the current problem feel all-consuming. Training the opposite, deliberately expanding your view, restores balance. One practical way involves asking yourself 3 questions during challenging periods. How does this fit into the larger story of my life? What strengths or resources do I already possess that could help here? What small step taken today would move things in a better direction? These questions do not minimize real pain. They simply prevent it from becoming your entire reality. People who develop this habit often report that their most difficult seasons eventually became sources of their deepest capabilities. Not because suffering is inherently good, but because they refuse to let it define them completely. It is worth acknowledging that building these capacities requires facing discomfort directly. Many of us have developed sophisticated ways to avoid it. Overworking, numbing through distractions, endless planning, or seeking constant reassurance. While these strategies provide temporary relief, they often leave the underlying vulnerability untouched. True unbreakability grows when you gradually reduce avoidance and increase direct, skillful engagement with difficulty. This does not mean seeking out pain. It means stopping the unnecessary amplification of normal life challenges through rumination or catastrophic thinking. It means building tolerance for uncertainty, rather than demanding guarantees that life cannot provide. Each time you choose to stay present with discomfort instead of escaping it, you prove to yourself that you are more capable than your fears suggest. As this foundation strengthens, you begin to notice a subtle but profound identity shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who breaks under pressure and start recognizing yourself as someone who works with pressure. This new identity is not arrogant, it is quietly grounded. It allows you to show up more fully in relationships because you are less afraid of being hurt. It supports clearer decisions in your work because your sense of worth is less tied to external outcomes. It creates space for genuine rest because you are not constantly fighting your own experience. None of this happens overnight. The path contains plateaus and occasional backslides. These are not failures. They are part of the learning process. Every person WHO has developed notable inner strength has navigated similar territory. What separates those WHO progress from those WHO remain stuck is often simply the decision to continue returning to the practices even when results feel slow. In many cases, the people around you will begin to sense this change before you fully recognize it yourself. They may comment that you seem steadier, more present, or less reactive. These external reflections can serve as encouraging data points, but your primary reference should remain internal. How do you feel when facing difficulty? How quickly do you recover? How aligned are your actions with your deeper values? The art of being unbreakable is, at its heart, the art of becoming more reliably yourself under any conditions, not a different person. Not a superhuman, simply a more integrated, aware, and capable version of WHO you already are. This version tends to navigate life's uncertainties with greater effectiveness. It builds relationships based on mutual respect rather than fear or dependency. It pursues meaningful goals with persistence rather than desperation. You already possess everything necessary to begin. The willingness to observe, the courage to feel, and the discipline to practice. These are human capacities, not rare gifts. As you apply these ideas in your daily life, you will likely discover that the storms still come, but your relationship with them changes. You become less a victim of circumstances and more a conscious participant in your own unfolding story. This is the foundation. From here, we move into the daily architecture that turns these insights into lived reality. Now that the foundation is clear, let us turn our attention to the daily architecture that transforms understanding into lived capacity. Unbreakability is not a single decision made in a moment of inspiration. It is the result of repeated small choices, practiced consistently until they become the default setting of your mind and nervous system. These practices are not dramatic. They are quiet, steady, and remarkably effective when applied with patience. Begin with the morning anchor. The first hour after waking sets the tone for how you meet the day's uncertainties. Instead of immediately reaching for your phone or rushing into tasks, create a brief period of deliberate preparation. Sit quietly for 10 to 15 minutes. Notice your breathing. Scan your body for areas of tension carried over from sleep or yesterday's residue. This simple act trains your awareness muscle before the world begins making demands. Many people WHO adopt this habit report starting their days with a clearer sense of internal alignment rather than immediate reactivity to external noise. During this time, gently review your core direction, not a rigid to-do list, but a reminder of what matters most to you, your values, your responsibilities, the kind of person you intend to be today. This practice tends to increase the likelihood that your actions throughout the day will remain connected to something deeper than momentary pressures. When challenges arise later, you already have an internal reference point to return to. Movement follows naturally as the next layer. Physical practice is one of the most reliable ways to build resilience because it directly trains your nervous system to handle discomfort and recover. You do not need extreme fitness. A consistent routine, walking, strength training, yoga, or any form that challenges you slightly, teaches your body that stress, followed by recovery, leads to greater capacity. The same principle applies to your mind. Each time you complete a session, even when you don't feel like it, you reinforce the pattern of following through regardless of temporary resistance. Pay particular attention to how you handle the inevitable moments when motivation is low. These are not obstacles to the practice. They are the practice. The unbreakable person learns to act from intention rather than fleeting feeling. Over months, this builds a quiet confidence that does not depend on perfect conditions. You begin to trust your ability to show up for yourself even when circumstances are less than ideal. Journaling, when done with precision, becomes another powerful daily tool. Avoid vague venting or endless positivity lists. Instead, use a structured approach that builds awareness and accountability. At the end of each day, spend a few minutes noting 3 specific things. One situation where you responded in a way that aligned with your values, one moment where an old pattern appeared and what you learned from it, and one small action you will take tomorrow to strengthen your capacity. This method turns daily experience into deliberate learning. It prevents the common trap of repeating the same emotional cycles without gaining insight. The language you use in this reflection matters. Frame setbacks as data rather than personal failure. Instead of, "I completely lost control today," try, "I noticed my frustration rising quickly in that conversation. Next time I can create more space before responding." This subtle shift in wording trains your mind toward growth rather than self-judgment. Over time, it tends to reduce the emotional weight carried from difficult moments. Another essential practice involves managing inputs. The modern world floods us with information, opinions, and other people's crises. Each exposure subtly shapes your nervous system. The person developing unbreakability becomes more intentional about what they allow in. This does not mean isolation. It means curation. Choose periods of the day for focused attention without external noise. Protect time for deep work, reflection, or genuine connection without the constant pull of notifications. These boundaries are acts of self-respect that increase your available energy for what truly matters. In relationships, this same discernment proves valuable. Unbreakability in connection means showing up fully while maintaining your own center. Many people swing between 2 extremes: complete emotional openness that leaves them vulnerable to manipulation, or rigid self-protection that prevents real intimacy. The balanced approach involves learning to share appropriately while observing how others respond over time. Trust builds gradually through consistent evidence rather than instant declarations. You remain open to connection while keeping responsibility for your own emotional state. When conflict arises, and it will, practice the pause we discussed earlier. Breathe. Name what you are feeling. Then choose a response that serves clarity rather than victory. Statements that begin with "I notice" or "I feel" tend to reduce defensiveness in others while keeping ownership of your experience. This approach often leads to more productive conversations. and preserves your inner peace even when agreement is not reached. Remember that other people's reactions ultimately belong to them. Your responsibility is the integrity of your own communication and follow-through. One of the more challenging daily practices involves embracing uncertainty on purpose. Most of us try to minimize it through excessive planning or reassurance seeking. While reasonable preparation is wise, attempting to eliminate all unknowns creates fragility. Life's unpredictable nature becomes a threat rather than a natural element. Small experiments help here. Deliberately step into situations with incomplete information, trying a new approach at work, having a conversation without a predetermined script, making a decision without waiting for perfect. Confidence. Each time you do this and survive, your tolerance for ambiguity grows. You discover that you can function effectively even when the full picture is not yet clear. This capacity becomes especially important during larger life transitions. Career changes, relationship shifts, health challenges. These periods test everything we have built. The daily practices you maintain during calm times become your lifeline when storms intensify. They prevent the common pattern where difficulty causes complete collapse of routines, which then prolongs recovery. By keeping core practices alive even at reduced intensity, you maintain forward momentum. Nutrition and rest deserve mention as well, though they are often overlooked in discussions of mental strength. Your brain and nervous system operate on the fuel and recovery you provide. Chronic sleep deprivation or poor nutrition tends to amplify emotional reactivity and impair clear thinking. Treating your body with care is not separate from mental mastery. It is part of the same system. Consistent, respectful attention to these basics increases the likelihood that your mind will have the resources it needs when challenges arrive. As these practices accumulate, something important begins to shift in how you perceive yourself. You move from hoping you will handle difficulty well to quietly knowing you have tools and patterns that support you. This knowing is not arrogance. It is earned confidence based on repeated evidence. You still feel fear, disappointment, or anger when appropriate, but these states no longer control the direction of your days or weeks. The art here is integration. These practices work best when woven naturally into your existing life rather than added as overwhelming new burdens. Start with one or two that resonate most strongly. Master them before layering on more. Consistency at a sustainable level outperforms sporadic intensity every time. You may notice resistance arising as you implement these changes. Old habits will pull you back toward autopilot. External demands will compete for your attention. This is expected. The measure of progress is not the absence of resistance, but your ability to notice it and gently return to your chosen practices. Each return strengthens the neural pathways associated with awareness and choice. In many cases, people WHO commit to these daily elements, report gradual but noticeable changes in their relationships and opportunities. Others sense the steadiness and respond with greater respect. Challenges that once consumed them now feel more manageable. None of this happens because life became easier. It happens because their internal response system became more refined. This daily architecture forms the bridge between intention and identity. As you live these practices, being unbreakable stops feeling like something you do and starts becoming something you are. Not perfectly, not without effort, but with increasing naturalness and reliability. The foundation is set. The daily practices are in motion. Next, we turn to the deeper obstacles that can quietly undermine even the most consistent efforts and how to navigate them with clarity and skill. With daily practices taking shape, we now address something equally vital. The deeper obstacles that can quietly erode even the most consistent efforts. These are not dramatic external crises, but internal patterns that operate beneath everyday awareness. Left unexamined, they tend to pull a person back toward familiar fragility despite genuine intention to grow stronger. Understanding them with clarity allows you to navigate around or through them more effectively. One of the most common obstacles is the perfectionism trap. Many driven individuals approach personal growth with the same high standards they apply to work or achievements. They expect rapid progress, flawless execution of new practices, and immediate emotional mastery. When reality falls short, as it inevitably does in the early stages, they interpret the gap as failure. This judgment triggers self-criticism, which often leads to abandoning the practices altogether or pushing harder in unsustainable ways. The result is a cycle of brief intensity followed by burnout or discouragement. The reframe here is subtle but powerful. Progress in building unbreakability is more like cultivating a garden than constructing a machine. Growth happens in seasons, with periods of visible change and periods of quiet rooting. Expecting constant linear improvement sets up unnecessary disappointment. Instead, aim for direction and consistency. Some weeks you may handle challenges with noticeable steadiness. Others may feel like 2 steps forward and 1 back. Both are useful. The back steps often reveal where your awareness still needs sharpening. Treating them as information rather than evidence of inadequacy tends to preserve motivation over the long term. A practical way to work with this obstacle is to set minimum viable practices. On difficult days, commit only to the smallest version of your chosen habits. 3 conscious breaths instead of 15 minutes of reflection. A short walk instead of a full workout. Completing these minimums maintains the chain of consistency and prevents the all-or-nothing thinking that perfectionism fuels. Over time, this approach often leads to greater overall adherence than more ambitious but fragile plans. Another significant obstacle is unresolved emotional residue from past experiences. Most people carry echoes of earlier difficulties, childhood instability, previous betrayals, repeated disappointments, that color current perceptions without conscious recognition. These residues can make neutral situations feel threatening or amplify normal setbacks into overwhelming events. A minor criticism at work might trigger an outsized reaction because it connects to old feelings of not being enough. A friend canceling plans might reopen wounds of abandonment that were never fully processed. Awareness is the first step toward loosening their grip. Notice recurring themes in your emotional reactions. Do certain types of people or situations reliably produce stronger responses than seem warranted by the present facts? Gentle curiosity here is key. No harsh interrogation of yourself, simply observation. Journaling can help trace these patterns back to their origins without getting lost in rumination. The goal is not to dwell on the past, but to separate old interpretations from present reality. When you can say, "This intensity feels familiar from before, but today's situation is different," you create space for a more measured response. Processing these residues does not require dramatic catharsis. Small, consistent acknowledgement often suffices. When a strong reaction arises, allow yourself a brief moment to name the older layer. Part of me is responding to past hurt here, then gently return attention to what is actually happening now and what choice serves your current values. This practice, repeated over months, tends to reduce the automatic power of old patterns and increases emotional freedom in daily life. People-pleasing patterns represent another frequent obstacle. The desire for approval and harmony is deeply human, yet when it becomes dominant, it can erode personal boundaries and inner steadiness. Individuals caught in this pattern often prioritize others' comfort over their own clarity, saying yes when they mean no, suppressing honest opinions, or taking responsibility for emotions that belong to someone else. Over time, this creates internal pressure that builds until it either explodes in resentment or collapses into exhaustion. Ethical navigation here involves learning to value mutual respect rather than constant approval. This includes developing the ability to deliver clear, kind communication even when it might temporarily disappoint others. Start with low-stakes situations. Practice expressing a preference or declining a request without over-explaining or apologizing excessively. Notice the discomfort that arises and let it pass while maintaining your position. Each time you do this successfully, you reinforce that you can be respectful and still honor your own needs. This balance tends to attract healthier relationships over time, connections based on genuine compatibility rather than one-sided accommodation. Fear of vulnerability can also undermine unbreakability in surprising ways. Some people equate strength with never showing weakness, never asking for support, or never admitting uncertainty. While self-reliance is valuable, complete emotional isolation tends to limit both growth and connection. True resilience includes the wisdom to know when sharing difficulty with trusted others can distribute the load and provide new perspectives. The key is discernment, Choosing carefully, WHO deserves access to your inner world and maintaining responsibility for your responses regardless of their input. In practice, this might mean identifying one or two people in your life with whom you can share challenges honestly, while still practicing your own regulation skills. The goal is not dependency but balanced interdependence. You remain the primary steward of your state, yet you allow appropriate support to strengthen rather than replace your capacity. Comparison represents a particularly modern obstacle amplified by constant exposure to others' curated highlights. Seeing others appear to handle life effortlessly can trigger feelings of inadequacy or unfairness. This tends to pull attention away from your own path and into unproductive mental territory. The antidote is deliberate refocusing. When comparison arises, gently redirect to your own baseline. How am I doing relative to where I was 6 months ago? What small evidence of growth can I recognize today? This shift protects motivation and reinforces personal accountability. It is also important to address the obstacle of intellectual understanding without embodied practice. Many people consume ideas about resilience enthusiastically but struggle to translate them into consistent action. Knowledge alone rarely changes behavior. Real transformation requires repeated real-world application, especially in moments when it feels inconvenient. This is where discipline without harshness becomes essential. You treat practice as a form of self-respect rather than punishment. Missing a day does not require self-criticism. It simply invites a calm return the following day. These obstacles do not disappear completely. Even those WHO have practiced for years still encounter them from time to time. The difference lies in recognition speed and response effectiveness. What once derailed progress for weeks now becomes a brief detour that actually deepens understanding. This meta-skill, the ability to observe your own obstacles without being consumed by them, is itself a demonstration of growing unbreakability. As you work with these patterns, you may notice a gradual loosening of their influence. Reactions that once felt automatic begin to slow down. Spaces for choice appear more frequently. The internal climate becomes less stormy and more navigable. This does not mean life stops presenting challenges. It means your relationship with those challenges evolves toward greater skill and less unnecessary suffering. None of this work happens in isolation. The people around you influence your progress, sometimes supportively and sometimes through their own unresolved patterns. Learning to maintain your practices while interacting with varied personalities becomes an advanced training ground. You practice staying centered during difficult conversations. You observe without absorbing others' emotional states. You respond from clarity rather than reactivity. These real-life applications strengthen the skills far more effectively than isolated reflection alone. The path through obstacles requires patience and self-compassion balanced with accountability. You acknowledge the difficulty of change while still choosing to move forward. This balanced stance tends to sustain effort better than either harsh self-demand or endless leniency. With obstacles better understood and strategies for working with them in place, the foundation grows more solid. Daily practices become more resilient. Awareness deepens. You begin to experience moments where your responses genuinely surprise you with their steadiness. These moments accumulate into a new sense of identity, one rooted not in never breaking, but in recovering and realigning with increasing skill. From here, we turn toward the relational dimension of unbreakability, how this inner work expresses itself in connections with others, and how relationships themselves become both testing grounds and training fields for greater strength. With obstacles recognized and daily practices taking root, we now explore how this inner work expresses itself in the relational world. Relationships serve as both mirrors and amplifiers of your developing unbreakability. They test your patterns under emotional heat and offer some of the richest opportunities to strengthen your capacity. The goal is not to become unaffected by others, but to engage with them in ways that preserve your center while honoring mutual respect and potential benefit. At the heart of relational unbreakability lies a clear distinction between your internal state and other people's behavior. Most interpersonal friction arises when we tie our sense of steadiness too tightly to how others act or respond. Someone's tone shifts, a commitment falls through, or silence lingers longer than expected, and the mind quickly construction meaning that threatens our balance. The person building unbreakability learns to notice this pull and gently separate the two. What they did is theirs. How I interpret and respond is mine. This separation does not create distance. It creates clarity that often improves connection. In practice, this shows up in how you handle moments of disappointment or disagreement. Instead of immediate reaction or withdrawal, you create that familiar pause. You name what you feel, perhaps hurt, irritation, or concern, without letting the emotion dictate the next words. Then you choose a response aimed at understanding and resolution rather than winning or protecting image. Phrases like, "I want to understand what happened from your side," or "this is important to me," because tend to open dialogue more effectively than accusation. Over repeated interactions, this approach often increases the chance of constructive outcomes and reduces the emotional residue you carry afterward. Boundaries form another essential expression of strength in relationships. Many people confuse boundaries with walls or punishment. In reality, they are clear expressions of what supports your well-being and what does not. An unbreakable approach to boundaries emphasizes responsibility on both sides. You communicate them calmly and specifically. "I'm available for this conversation until 8, then I need to rest," rather than vaguely or aggressively. When someone crosses a stated boundary, you address it directly but without drama, focusing on the impact and the needed adjustment. This maintains your integrity while giving the other person information they can choose to respect. Importantly, this work includes respecting others' boundaries in return. Unbreakability in connection is mutual. It involves recognizing when someone needs space, when they are not ready for deeper discussion, or when their limits differ from yours. This reciprocity tends to build trust over time. Relationships rooted in mutual and clear communication become more stable because both parties feel safer expressing needs without fear of explosion or collapse. Conflict, when approached skillfully, becomes valuable training rather than threat. Most people either avoid it at great cost or engage in ways that escalate damage. The middle path involves staying present with discomfort while keeping your larger intentions in view. You listen fully without planning your rebuttal. You express your perspective without needing the other person to immediately agree. You look for shared ground even when disagreement remains. This does not guarantee resolution every time, but it increases the likelihood that the relationship either strengthens or concludes with dignity rather than lingering bitterness. There is wisdom in discerning which relationships to invest in deeply. Not every connection needs or deserves full emotional access. Some people will naturally align with your growth. Others may pull toward old patterns. Observing over time, without judgment or suspicion, helps you allocate energy more effectively. You remain open to connection while protecting the practices that sustain your steadiness. In many cases, this discernment leads to fewer but higher quality relationships that support rather than drain your capacity. Support networks deserve deliberate cultivation. The person developing unbreakability does not attempt total self-sufficiency. They build circles of mutual accountability and encouragement. This might include a few trusted individuals with whom honest feedback flows both ways. The key is choosing people who respect your agency and offer perspective without trying to control outcomes. Regular, low-pressure contact with such individuals tends to provide external calibration for your own awareness. They can notice patterns you miss and offer reminders when old habits resurface. At the same time, you remain the primary authority on your growth. External input informs but does not replace your internal compass. This balance prevents both isolation and overdependence. You share struggles without handing over responsibility for your emotional state. You receive support while continuing your own practices. This dynamic often deepens connections because it models the very steadiness you are developing. Intimate relationships present some of the most powerful opportunities for refinement. Closeness naturally surfaces vulnerabilities and differences. The unbreakable approach here involves bringing the same awareness and regulation skills into daily interactions. You notice when old fears of abandonment or rejection activate and choose not to let them drive decisions. You practice expressing appreciation and concerns with specificity rather than sweeping generalizations. Small, consistent moments of this kind tend to build a foundation of safety that makes both partners more willing to grow together. When difficulties arise in closeness, misunderstandings, shifting needs, external pressures, the same tools apply. Pause, regulate, reconnect with your values for the relationship, then engage. Many couples or close friends WHO adopt these approaches report that conflicts, while still present, lose their ability to derail the entire connection. Recovery happens faster. Understanding deepens. The relationship itself becomes a source of shared resilience. It is worth noting that unbreakability in relationships does not mean never feeling hurt or never making mistakes. Human connection always carries risk. The difference lies in how quickly and responsibly you recover. A strong reaction happens, words slip, silence lingers too long. You notice, own your part, and take steps to realign. This modeling of accountability often encourages the same in others. It turns inevitable imperfections into opportunities for trust rather than erosion. Work and professional relationships benefit from similar principles. Clear communication, maintained composure under pressure, and ethical influence through competence and integrity tend to command greater respect than force or manipulation. When projects falter or colleagues behave unpredictably, you focus on what you can contribute to solutions rather than attempting to control others' performance. This stance reduces personal stress while often improving team dynamics over time. Navigating larger social circles requires its own discernment. Group dynamics can amplify both positive and negative patterns. The person building unbreakability participates without losing their individual center. They contribute thoughtfully while observing the larger emotional currents. They avoid being swept into collective reactivity while still offering value. This balanced presence tends to make you a stabilizing influence in many settings. Throughout all these relational contexts, one underlying practice remains central: returning to self-awareness amid interaction. In conversation, part of your attention stays gently anchored in your own state, breathing, bodily sensations, emerging thoughts. This dual awareness allows you to stay connected to the other person while preventing emotional hijacking. It improves listening. It supports better timing and responses. It preserves energy that might otherwise be lost to unconscious reactivity. As these relational skills deepen, you may notice a profound shift. Interactions that once left you drained or destabilized now become manageable. You recover faster from misunderstandings. You engage more fully because you trust your capacity to return to center. Relationships begin to reflect your growing steadiness back to you. People respond to the calm authority you embody, not because you dominate, but because your presence feels reliable and respectful. This does not mean every relationship improves or lasts. Some may naturally fade as your patterns change. Others may deepen in meaningful ways. Both outcomes can serve your long-term growth when met with acceptance and learning. The relational dimension completes an important loop. Inner work strengthens how you engage with others, and those engagements in turn test and refine your inner capacity. The two become mutually reinforcing. Daily practices gain real-world application. Obstacles reveal themselves more clearly in connection. Awareness sharpens through repeated interpersonal feedback. With this layer integrated, the foundation feels more complete. You move through the world with greater steadiness, in solitude and in company. From here, we turn toward the longer arc. How these elements compound into lasting identity change and how to sustain progress across seasons of life. As the practices settle into your days and relationships, a deeper transformation begins to unfold. This is the shift from doing the work of unbreakability to becoming it in a more natural, integrated way. It is not a sudden arrival at perfection, but a gradual evolution of identity, where steadiness feels less like effort and more like your default orientation toward life. This section explores how that change takes root, how to sustain it across the seasons of a human life, and how to navigate the larger arcs that test everything you have built. Identity change happens through accumulated evidence. Each time you pause instead of react, each time you return to awareness after a slip, each time you choose a response aligned with your values despite pressure, your mind begins to update its core. Story about WOUR. The old narrative, I fall apart under stress or I can't handle uncertainty, loses its grip as new experiences accumulate. You start to see yourself as someone WH works with difficulty rather than someone defined by it. This shift tends to happen so gradually that you may not notice it until a former trigger erises and your response feels markedly different. This new identity is grounded, not grandiose. It carries humility because you have seen your own patterns clearly. It includes realistic self-knowledge. You know your vulnerabilities without being ruled by them. You understand that life will continue presenting challenges, and you trust your capacity to meet them with increasing skill. This quiet confidence expresses itself not in bold declarations, but in consistent presence. Others may describe you as steady or reliable, but the real measure remains internal. How aligned you feel with your own standards even when no one is watching. Sustaining this growth requires attention to life's natural seasons. There are periods of relative calm, when practices feel easy and progress compounds smoothly. Then come seasons of intensity, career transitions, health concerns, family responsibilities, or unexpected losses, when maintaining even basic awareness can feel demanding. The unbreakable approach adapts rather than insists on rigid routines. During high-pressure times, you scale to minimum viable practices. Shorter reflections, briefer movement sessions, more frequent micro-pauses. The continuity itself becomes the strength. By refusing to abandon the work completely when conditions are difficult, you prevent the old collapse and rebuild cycle that many experience. One powerful way to navigate these seasons is through periodic review. Every few months, set aside time to look back without judgment. What practices have been most supportive? Where have old obstacles reappeared? What small adjustments would serve the next phase? This reflection reinforces learning and prevents drift. It also builds perspective, reminding you that temporary intensity is part of any meaningful life, not evidence that your efforts have failed. Major life events offer some of the strongest tests and teachers. A significant loss, a serious health diagnosis, a relationship ending, or a dream deferred. These moments compress years of growth into concentrated experience. In such times, the foundation you have built becomes crucial. Self-awareness helps you name the waves of emotion without being swept away by them. Regulation skills allow you to experience grief, fear, or anger while still making necessary decisions. Perspective practices keep the present pain from becoming your entire future story. Many people WHO have walked this path report that even in their most difficult chapters, they retained a core of agency, a sense that while they could not control the event, they could still choose their relationship to it. Recovery after such events rarely follows a straight line. There are good days and heavy days. The art is in allowing the process while gently steering away from prolonged rumination or total shutdown. Small daily anchors, movement, honest reflection, connection with supportive people, tend to create threads of continuity that eventually weave into renewed stability. Over time, these experiences often become sources of deeper empathy and clearer priorities. Not because suffering itself is desirable, but because you met it with the skills you had cultivated. Another aspect of long-term mastery involves integrating all the elements we have discussed into a cohesive way of being. Self-awareness, emotional regulation, perspective, daily practices, relational clarity, and obstacle navigation stop feeling like separate tools and begin operating as one intelligent system. You notice a trigger and the pause, naming, and reframing happen almost together. In conversation, boundary and empathy arise naturally in the same moment. This integration creates a smoother internal experience, less friction between intention and action, fewer energy leaks from inner conflict. Yet even with integration, plateaus arrive. Progress seems to slow. Motivation can wane. These periods test patience and commitment more than dramatic crises do. The response that tends to serve best is gentle persistence. You continue the practices at whatever level is sustainable, trusting that the work is still compounding beneath the surface. Many report breakthroughs arriving after such quiet phases, almost as if the mind needed time to consolidate before advancing again. It is also wise to consider how external environments affect your growth. Certain settings or roles may challenge your steadiness more than others. A high-pressure workplace, a draining social circle, or living arrangements that limit recovery time can make practice more difficult. While you cannot always change your circumstances immediately, you can adjust your internal approach and look for incremental improvements in your environment over time. This might mean negotiating better boundaries at work, investing in new connections, or gradually reshaping daily rhythms. The principle remains: influence what you can while maintaining responsibility for your responses to what you cannot. As years accumulate, the person you become carries a different relationship with time and outcomes. You invest effort without attaching your worth to specific results. You pursue meaningful goals with discipline while holding them lightly enough to adapt when necessary. This balanced stance reduces unnecessary suffering from disappointment and increases satisfaction from the process itself. Success and setback both become data points rather than identity definers. There is a subtle power that emerges from this way of living. Not power over others, but power with life. The ability to move through uncertainty with direction, to experience emotion without being controlled by it, to maintain integrity when it would be easier to compromise. This power expresses itself quietly, in the respect you earn through consistency, in the depth of connections you sustain, in the sense of internal peace that persists even amid external change. None of this makes you immune to human limitations. You will still have moments of reactivity, days when old patterns surface, seasons when progress feels invisible. The difference is that these no longer define you. You see them as temporary states within a larger pattern of growth. That meta-awareness itself becomes a form of unbreakability. Looking toward the longer horizon, this work naturally extends beyond personal benefit. As your steadiness increases, you tend to show up as a more reliable presence for others. Whether in family, community, or professional spheres, you model the possibility of strength without hostility, clarity without arrogance, compassion without collapse. In doing so, you contribute to environments where mutual respect and ethical growth become more natural. This ripple effect is not the primary goal, but a meaningful byproduct of living the principles deeply. Sustaining progress ultimately comes down to returning to awareness when distracted, returning to values when pulled off course, returning to practice when consistency falters. This simple act of return, repeated across decades, creates a life characterized by resilience and integrity. It is not flashy, it does not promise constant ease, but it tends to produce a deeply satisfying experience of being human, where you meet life's full range with capacity and presence. The identity that emerges is both stronger and more human. You are not unbreakable in the sense of never cracking. You are unbreakable in the sense that you know how to mend, realign, and continue with greater wisdom. This version of you navigates the complexities of relationships, responsibilities, and uncertainty with increasing effectiveness and quiet confidence. We are approaching the final integration. In the next section, we will bring all these threads together into a cohesive vision of what a life rooted in this art can look like, along with the last refinements that support lifelong mastery. We arrive now at the final integration, where all the threads we have explored weave into a single, lived way of being. This is the point where the art of being unbreakable moves beyond techniques and becomes the quiet architecture of a life well met. It is not a destination of constant ease or flawless performance, but a sustainable orientation that allows you to engage fully with the real world, its beauty and its demands, its unpredictability and its while remaining aligned with your deepest values. Picture a life shaped by this mastery. Mornings begin with presence rather than immediate reaction. You move through the day with clear intention, handling pressures without losing your center. Conversations carry both honesty and respect. Setbacks arrive as they must, yet they no longer hijack weeks of your energy. Relationships deepen because you bring steadiness rather than volatility. Decisions reflect thoughtful consideration instead of emotional urgency. Rest feels restorative because you are not constantly fighting your own experience. This is not a fantasy version of life. It is an attainable reality, built through the consistent application of the principles we have examined. At this stage, the practices no longer feel like separate exercises. They operate as one fluid system. Awareness notices the arising of a strong emotion. Regulation softens its intensity. Perspective places it within a larger context. Values guide the response. Relational skill shapes the interaction. The entire process becomes more automatic, not because it requires no effort, but because repetition has made it efficient. You still choose consciously, yet the choice happens with less inner friction. One of the most meaningful refinements at this level is the cultivation of anti-fragility, the capacity not only to withstand pressure but to allow it to sharpen your strengths. When a project fails, you extract the specific lessons that improve future approaches. When a relationship encounters strain, you gain clearer understanding of your own needs and boundaries. When health or circumstances impose limits, you discover new ways to create meaning within them. This does not mean seeking difficulty. It means refusing to waste the information difficulty provides. Over years, this tendency transforms challenges into refined capability. Another refinement involves balancing acceptance with responsible action. There are elements of life you cannot change, certain past events, other people's core choices, the basic realities of uncertainty and mortality. Fighting these realities tends to create exhaustion. Accepting them while still taking wise action where possible conserves energy and sharpens focus. This balance prevents both helpless resignation and frantic control attempts. It supports a calm determination that serves long-term well-being. In daily life, this shows up as a lighter attachment to specific outcomes. You prepare thoroughly, communicate clearly, and follow through with discipline, yet you hold the results with open hands. This stance often improves performance because anxiety no longer clouds judgment. It also protects joy. Small successes register more fully when they are not burdened by the fear of future failure. Moments of connection feel richer when not overshadowed by the need for permanent guarantees. The relational expression of this integrated life carries particular depth. You show up as someone others can count on. Not because you never struggle, but because you handle struggle without shifting responsibility onto them. You offer support without overstepping. You receive support without losing agency. Conflicts happen, yet they resolve with greater speed and less damage, because both parties sense the underlying commitment to mutual respect. Over time, your circle tends to include more relationships that encourage growth and fewer that drain capacity. This natural selection emerges not from cynicism, but from clear observation and consistent boundary practice. Career and contribution also transform. With steadier emotions and clearer perspective, you make decisions that align more closely with long-term impact rather than short-term approval. You handle pressure with composure that often inspires those around you. Setbacks in work become opportunities to demonstrate resilience and creativity. Many people at this stage report that opportunities arise more readily, not because life became fairer, but because their increased capacity makes them more valuable in any environment. Health and energy management receive natural priority. You understand that your nervous system and body are the vehicles for everything else. Consistent movement, restorative rest, and mindful nourishment become non-negotiable expressions of self-responsibility rather than optional extras. This physical foundation supports mental clarity during demanding periods and speeds recovery when challenges tax your resources. Perhaps the most profound shift is in your relationship with yourself. Self-criticism gives way to honest accountability paired with genuine respect. You see your patterns clearly without condemnation. You celebrate progress without arrogance. This internal climate makes sustained growth feel sustainable rather than exhausting. You become a reliable ally to yourself. Someone WHO shows up even on difficult days. WHO learns from mistakes without dwelling. WHO continues choosing what serves your values. It is important to acknowledge that this life still contains hardship. Loss occurs. Plans change. The body ages. Relationships evolve or end. Unbreakability does not eliminate these realities. It changes your experience of them. You feel the weight fully, yet you do not collapse under it. You grieve without losing all forward direction. You adapt without abandoning core principles. This capacity allows life to remain meaningful even when it is painful. Lifelong mastery requires one final refinement, the practice of periodic renewal. Every year or two, revisit the fundamentals with fresh eyes. Return to basic awareness exercises. Re-examine your daily architecture. Reassess relationships and environments. This prevents subtle drift and keeps the system responsive. It also honors the reality that growth is never finished. New seasons bring new lessons. The person WHO embraces this ongoing nature tends to maintain progress longer than those seeking a final arrival point. As this way of being deepens, a quiet authority emerges. Not the loud kind that demands attention, but the steady presence that others naturally notice. People may seek your perspective during their own difficulties. Teams may function better when you are part of them. You become someone WHO improves the emotional climate of a room without trying to control it. This influence flows from integrity rather than strategy. It arises because your words and actions consistently match. Looking back across the full arc, from the initial hook through foundations, practices, obstacles, relationships, and long-term identity, you see a coherent path. Each element supports the others. Awareness without practice remains theoretical. Practice without awareness becomes mechanical. Relational skill without inner work becomes performative. The integration creates something greater than the sum of its parts, a resilient, ethical, and deeply human way of navigating existence. This mastery is available to anyone WHO engages honestly with the process. It does not require exceptional talent or perfect conditions. It asks only for willingness to observe, courage to feel, discipline to practice, and humility to continue learning. The results tend to compound quietly. Better decisions, stronger connections, reduced regret, increased capacity for meaning. Not guaranteed perfection, but a markedly improved likelihood of living with steadiness and purpose. You now hold the complete framework. The real work begins in the choices you make starting today. Not in grand gestures, but in the next moment of tension, the next conversation, the next decision to return to awareness. Each of those moments is where the art is practiced. Each return strengthens the whole. The person you are becoming is already emerging. Steady, aware, ethical, resilient, capable of meeting life as it is while continuing to shape what can be shaped. This is the art of being unbreakable, not as an unreachable ideal, but as a practical, powerful way of being fully human in an unpredictable world. Carry this with calm confidence. The storms will come, as they do for everyone. Yet, you now possess the inner architecture to stand steady, to learn, to recover, and to continue moving forward with integrity. That capacity is one of the most valuable possessions any human can develop. As we come to the close of this exploration, take a moment to let the ideas settle. You have walked through the full architecture of becoming unbreakable, not as an abstract ideal, but as a practical, human process available to anyone WHO chooses to engage with it honestly. The journey we have mapped together moves from the initial recognition of life's pressures through the foundational skills of awareness and regulation, the daily practices that build capacity, obstacles that test commitment, the relational fields where strength is refined, and finally, the long arc where these elements integrate into a steadier, more resilient way of being. This is not a temporary mindset shift designed to fade once the listening ends. It is an invitation to a different operating system, where you meet uncertainty with presence, difficulty with skill, and connection with both openness and boundaries. The true measure of this work will not appear in dramatic moments of triumph. It will show itself quietly, in the conversation where you pause instead of reacting, in the setback you recover from faster than before, in the evening when you choose reflection over endless distraction, in the relationship that grows deeper because you brought steadiness rather than volatility. You now possess a clear map. The foundation of self-awareness creates the gap between stimulus and response. Daily practices turn that gap into a reliable pathway. Navigation of obstacles prevents unnecessary detours. Relational skill ensures your strength serves connection rather than isolation. Long-term integration makes the entire process feel increasingly natural. Together, these elements tend to increase the likelihood that you will navigate life's inevitable storms with greater clarity, recover more effectively, and continue creating meaning even when conditions resist. Remember that this path honors your full humanity. It does not ask you to deny pain, eliminate vulnerability, or become someone WHO never struggles. Instead, it invites you to experience the full range of being human, while developing the skill to hold those experiences without being controlled by them. You will still feel fear, disappointment, anger, and grief. The difference is that these states become signals to be understood rather than forces that dictate your direction. This balanced relationship with your inner world tends to free up enormous energy previously lost to prolonged reactivity, self-judgment, or futile attempts at control. The ethical core of this work remains essential. Unbreakability practiced with integrity respects others' agency while honoring your own. It seeks mutual benefit where possible and clear boundaries where necessary. It builds trust through consistent behavior rather than manipulation or performance. In a world that often rewards short-term wins and emotional spectacle, this quieter strength stands out, precisely because it is sustainable and grounded in responsibility. It improves not only your life but the environments you touch. families, teams, communities, by modeling a way of being that encourages similar growth in others. As you step back into your days, expect imperfection. Old patterns will reappear. Motivation will fluctuate. Life will present challenges that stretch everything you have built. These are not signs of failure. They are the curriculum. Each return to awareness, each deliberate pause, each honest reflection after a misstep strengthens the very capacities we have discussed. The person WHO continues returning, even when progress feels slow, tends to build the deepest and most enduring form of resilience. Consider what becomes possible when this art takes root. Decisions made from clarity rather than pressure. Relationships rooted in genuine respect rather than fear of loss. Work approached with persistence and adaptability rather than desperation or burnout. A sense of internal steadiness that allows you to contribute more fully to what matters. These outcomes are not guaranteed in every detail, but they become increasingly probable as the practices compound over months and years. You already contain everything required. The capacity for observation, the potential for regulation, the intelligence to learn from experience. These are built into human design. Your role is to cultivate them deliberately. Start where you are. Choose one practice from what we have covered and apply it consistently for the next week. Notice what shifts. Adjust gently. Build from there. Small, honest steps repeated tend to create larger transformations than occasional bursts of intense effort. In the quiet moments ahead, when pressure rises or uncertainty clouds the view, you may find yourself returning to these ideas. The breath that creates space, the naming that reduces intensity, the perspective that restores proportion, the values that guide choice. These become trusted companions. They do not remove the storm, but they change how you stand within it. The art of being unbreakable is ultimately the art of being more skillfully and reliably yourself, not a different person, not an invulnerable one. Simply one WHO has learned to work with the realities of life, its beauty and its demands, with greater awareness, steadiness, and integrity. This version of you tends to experience deeper satisfaction, stronger connections, and a quieter confidence that persists even when external conditions change. Carry this work forward with calm determination. The world needs more people WHO can remain clear amid confusion, steady amid chaos, and ethical amid pressure. By developing this capacity in yourself, you contribute to that need in the most authentic way possible, through the example of your own lived responses. Thank you for walking this path with openness and attention. The Real Audiobook continues in the choices you make starting now. May those choices reflect the strength you are cultivating, the awareness you are sharpening, and the integrity you are honoring. Life will keep offering its lessons. You now possess a more refined way to receive them. This is the beginning of a different relationship with difficulty, one where you are no longer at its mercy but able to meet it with presence and purpose. Stand steady, learn continuously, live fully.